Thank you so much for tuning in to Teaching for the Culture. And this is your host, Bianca Goolsby, founder and community reporter. And I'm so excited to have Dr. BT here in the building so that we could talk about schooling during the pandemic. And so I have her here to share her expertise so that we can have a real conversation centered around schooling during the pandemic and how you can make a enjoyable learning experience with your children at home. How are you doing, Dr. BT?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, kind of tell the people, your experience, your expertise, and what topics you have today.
Well, my background is in the field of education, and I specialize in edutainment, which is blending entertainment, things that children enjoy, with core content. So this is what I do typically, and I'm really excited to talk about joy, because when people are sad, that's when we really get to work. That's when we really go. That's when joy is needed. That's when the significance of play is, obvious. I no longer have to debate about its significance. People understand that we are in a health crisis, and we do have to consider mental health.
Yeah.
Mental health is also an issue for those who are now being self-quarantined and are really trying to figure out what is happening with our world, and not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow.
That's a real deal fear of not knowing, of the unknown, of what this is going to be like. So I'm really glad that you're here, and I'm really glad that you are willing to share your expertise. So what is it that we're talking about today?
Well, I think the big thing for me is exhale. That is the biggest advice I've been giving families. I've been watching social media. When we first was announced, I'm here, we're in the United States. So when it was first announced here, I put out a joke, a meme of Oprah saying, "You get to homeschool, you get to homeschool, everyone's gonna homeschool," which I thought was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And other people didn't, for various reasons. Yeah. So I know that it is serious, but I do want people to know we're not in an educational emergency. There is an emergency. It's not in the field of education. We can help. There's a lot we can do. But schooling is not a priority in a global pandemic. As a matter of fact, my philosophy on learning basically says that our lessons are coming from life. And oh my, there are so many lessons, so many life lessons for children, for families, for everyone during this time.
And you said a good point where now we can't focus on education because we're focused on the health and safety. We're focusing on if we're going to have food. We're focusing on a lot of things that's taking place in the home, trauma, things that are going on that supersedes getting on e-learning platforms and being on the computer, 3 hours a day or whatever have you to do classwork. You're absolutely right.
Well, I saw the response interesting. For those, I have nothing negative to say about anyone who made any efforts to stay connected with children and to provide them any type of core or supplemental educational service. If you decided, if you are living in a state where they said school is over and you went right into creating summer camp programs, awesome. If you're living in a country where they said teachers are essentials and you have to come to school, that was the case for my friend in Australia and too as of late. So when this first happened, I was saying, oh, we have to, go completely virtual. And she was saying, no, all the children need to come to us. And governments make different decisions. But when it comes to the idea of humanity, you do want to have a roof over your head. You want to have food in your stomach. You want to be in a safe place. And this doesn't matter what culture you are or what your socioeconomic class. These things are core. These things are real and we need them. I think this pandemic is giving us an awakening as to what is essential. Even the term essential is something being used, and people are realizing, wow, even the time that I do or don't spend with my children, how essential is it? It's a lot to think about.
Yeah. And especially when we have people that say, well, I have been an essential worker. And then they realize when we talk about the executive order, are they really essential? Is your job really necessary? And those are real conversations that are taking place. And it's causing a quagmire in people's paradigms too. It's even deeper than that. They don't even know. It's a way of feeling like, oh my gosh, so I'm not essential. And it's messing with certain people too with that.
Well, I think it's also nice because when we begin to have those conversations about fair wages
Yes.
after this pandemic, I think people are going to have really different ideas of who is on the front lines serving our communities and who, if in a time of crisis, would be risking their lives.
Yes.
That's why I don't have anything negative to say about any efforts that educators have made. There are educators who have, completely rewritten their curriculum. There are those who have gone and tried to do things virtually, done things face to face, put themselves in jeopardy to serve lunches. Just there's incredible efforts being made. But I would encourage families to start thinking about, they hit the wall. So there's this point with families where you saw families that were really eager to homeschool. Then there was a point where families were like, oh my gosh, technology. Then there were all these different responses. But the reason I want to talk about joy is because it's not a principle that is circumstantial.
Mm.
Typically, when I talk about joy, I'm talking about things that are not from the outside of you. These are things that are intrinsic, like hope and peace and love. So when I say I want a child to have enjoyment in their learning experience, typically I'm dismissed.
Yeah. It's interesting because when we talk about like, and when you were talking about joy, like that's something that you have to have, and I think that's a key part that we're missing in a lot of communities is hope and love and joy and happiness. And you cannot have a positive environment when you're surrounded by a cloud of negativity, when you're surrounded by, trauma. So like what's some advice you could give to parents to like help bring that joy to learning? Because I think we're missing some of that too.
Yes, I would give a parent in the pandemic the same advice I would give a parent during any other time of the year. I would tell them the simplest secret that I use for edutainment is I ask the parent or I ask the child, what do you want? What do you like? Is there a song that you like to hear? We know it or puts you in a certain mood. I ask the mom that, is there something that when you play this song while you're preparing your meal, does it shift the atmosphere? Does it change the way we feel? It's not a deep concept. Edutainment is very simple. We use toys, we use games, we use sporting activities, we use leisure activities, going for a walk, going for a bike ride, going through nature. We use media, obviously, media mass communication, having all of these things. And we still have our arts, all of the arts, fine and performing arts. They're so enriching. And right now, although it is a dark time, the silver lining for me in this gray cloud is that families are edutaining themselves, whether they mean to or not, to cope with this situation. Some parents have already said, even to their virtual learning environment, no, we're not doing it. And guess what? They're making forts. They're taking sheets out of their closet and they're building forts. Do you remember? I don't know if you ever had the chance to build a fort.
No.
It's the simple things. It's the simple things. You take a bunch of sheets and you try to construct using tables, chairs, anything you have, a building. And it's called a fort. And it's typically something that people can do with very, very little materials. We're imagining that everyone's stuck at home with a craft center, like everyone's got paint and coloring this and all of these wonderful things, which if you have those, great. If you have technologies and you have all of these things at home for your children, wonderful. And even if you don't, you can sing.
Yeah.
You don't even need TikTok to dance. This is how joy is our strength. This is how we empower ourselves, by knowing that no matter what is going on outside, the fact that we have each other, the fact that we are at this moment safe and healthy, we have something to celebrate. It gets to the matter of gratefulness for even the littlest of things. For those children who are in a home with their parents, I would just encourage their family to, at this point, exhale and connect.
Yeah.
Just connect with each other.
And our kids are connecting with strangers on the internet, and they're developing their own version of imposter syndrome, where they see certain kids have this life and they think that they should have that life too, or those same experiences, and they compare themselves to other children. And then that's when you start to see, the decline with self-esteem. You see the increase of anxiety. So that's why it's really important that the stress level is high. And Denise Thomas is on here, and she said the stress level is high. I'm still answering the same questions from 3 weeks ago. Why not just focus on social skills?
I agree. Now, my answer to that would be, yes, let's do it. And let's do it forever. Let's focus on social skills and never stop. Now that we're awakening because of this pandemic, and we recognize that, hey, critical thinking is what my child needs. And I'm hearing this from parents so much. They're like, my child's a straight A student, but, these last few weeks, I want them to take a critical thinking class, because they're seeing the deficit. I would encourage families who are saying like life skills. Typically, when I would tell someone I'm a non-school advocate, meaning I don't really subscribe to a curriculum and I don't necessarily need standardized assessments. Standardized assessments were a big thing until we realized, what? They're not essential. This whole thing is going to keep going without us getting this extremely important, expensive data that would bog us down for 3 months. Now schools can function without it just fine. Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew? I had a funny idea. I have said that were the case a time or two. But I'm glad. I'm glad families are saying, these life skills, they're essential. So now things that we thought were extracurricular are core content. Now families are saying, I want my child to have life skills. I want my child to be a critical thinker. I want my child to know how to, function in a time of crisis. And we never even thought of that as a thing,
Mm-hmm.
I feel where she's coming from, definitely, because those critical thinking skills are being pushed aside because of certain standards of learning.
Yeah. And with the standards of learning, like when you brought up the situation with the fort, I didn't have experience with building forts because when I was in school, we were teaching and our teachers were teaching to the test. And I still suffer from test anxiety to this day. I will never forget in my childhood experience where I received a perfect score on the test and the teacher assumed that I cheated on the test. And ever since then, I had always felt like, well, maybe if I don't answer this question right and I don't get a perfect score, it won't look like I'm cheating. Like that's a real thing. And so that's why our children have kind of unsubscribed to this whole schooling thing. If you look on TikTok and you see how they talk about school, they don't think that school is essential because they have Google.
Yes. Well, you know, in the information age, we can't, you know, knowledge has to be assessed differently because having information, who doesn't have information? I can go get information. Can I apply it?
Yes.
Can I create something? Am I a maker? Am I an innovator? These are the things that we have to have now. Can I solve a problem? Quickly identify it and solve it. You know, these children are 2 steps ahead. They're 2 steps ahead. I saw a meme where a little girl who's in a virtual learning environment where, you know, they're just seeing the screen. She's already figured out a way to take her screenshot and just post it. She knows her teacher doesn't really doesn't really know, but I love that child. I want to meet that child because I work with exceptionally gifted students. And a lot of times they have what you had. They have a lot of pressure. They're being taught to the test. A lot of schools use them to raise their benchmarks or to raise their overall grades or scores. So they have this really rigorous lifestyle, but it's not relevant. What's the point of rigor in a curriculum if it's not actually relevant to the child?
Right. And and you hit it. You hit the nail on the head with that. Right. Because we keep having these buzzwords. Last year was rigor. This year is now equity. All these buzzwords that sound good, but we're not getting to the actual child. We're not meeting the child's needs. And then you wonder why, you know, we see a decline in our children. They are invested in TikTok, and to where the child had the screenshot, they have tutorials. There's children giving tutorials on how to manipulate Zoom, how to manipulate Google Classroom. They're rating Google Classroom 1 stars in an attempt to get it removed from the App Store. Like, this is a real thing.
Well, I told you I wasn't going to go here. I did. I said I'm not going to talk about anyone else's efforts. But listen, this is how I feel about glorified Dropbox. Okay? The term Dropbox basically means, for those who don't use a lot of technology, it basically means you can upload something, you can download something. This takes us to a very old school way of thinking about teaching and learning, where the role of a teacher is to give an assignment and the role of a student is to turn it in. We got to get beyond that. We have to. And we have to challenge ourselves to use technologies that do more. The reason, okay, I'm just gonna go there because you I told you I would, but you know, so remember when it first happened and all of these technology giants said you can have our software for free?
Yes.
I was so happy. I said, yes. They're giving away this technology for free. Of course, parents are going to download it. Teachers are going to download it. And we're going to use that to make rich curriculum. And it's going to be just. So you're telling me you have a free subscription to Ivy League schools course and you went and trained your teachers on how to upload assignments so that students could download them? What? They're home. Why not do project-based learning? They're home. Why not do something in the community? Why not do service-based learning? Let's go into our career and technical education box. We've got a lot of tools.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of tools. I'm not saying there was something wrong with sending home laptops. I think it was ingenious for those children who receive them, for those children who have power, for those children who have internet. But with that equity buzzword, we know there are children who do not. We can also send home board games. We can also send home, activity books. We can sit home and cram. I mean, we can do whatever it is. We think distance learning is not a one-way type thing. Yeah, we can think outside the box. I'm so happy more people are trying.
Yeah. I like this comment. People of all ages need to know how to differentiate between information and misinformation. And you're right. That goes with critical thinking skills, and that is a skill. Getting receipts is a skill, and
Yes.
that is a skill.
I love when you talk about receipts.
Because people lie, receipts don't.
It's the truth. It's the truth. But you know, when I teach, so one of the courses that I teach that kind of deals with that, it's on research. It's a research course. It's part of skills for students who are gifted, but it requires the students to research. It requires them to get perspectives, varying perspectives, and to go through them. And this is something that you do even if you're, you know, an advanced or graduate student and you're doing a review of literature. You want to know, you know, you can 100 people can be talking on one topic, and from that, how do you find truth?
Yeah. How do you find truth? It's a skill. And it's something that we have to teach our kids because they're getting their information on social media, and that's how they're becoming updated. And, you know, they're watching it. A lot of stuff, you know, contains grammatical errors, and, you know, they emulate what they see. Their brain is showing them this. They're desensitized to a lot of things. So when we talk about all the situations that's taking place, they're desensitized to a lot of stuff because they've seen it either on YouTube, some type of medium platform that they shouldn't be desensitized to. So
Yeah.
my question would be, okay, so we're here and we're in this, you know, pandemic teaching is what April Cobb and Denise Thompson said.
Yes.
Pandemic teaching. What are some resources that parents should be utilizing during this time right now in order to best support them and their learner at home?
You know what I would start with? I would start with the family. I would start with who I am as an individual and just start with letting my child get to know me, whatever my natural, innate talents or gifts are, which we all have them. And maybe this will be a little check for the parent. You know, if you like to draw or you like to sing or you like to dance, do that with your child. When it comes to this technology, I love the things that you say when it comes to social media, and I love how much you caution parents. But parents and educators, we got to get involved. We have to meet our children at the point of their need. If the child is sitting there playing Roblox for an extended period of time, go ahead and get a login, mother. Get a login, father. Join them in that environment. Be there. Know who's talking to them. Know who's engaging them. Be a part of that conversation.
Right.
I don't know how else to say it than to inspire yourself, first of all, as an individual, and then be able to share that with the child, because children aren't asking for much. They're going through a lot. When it comes to teaching and learning, they're learning right now how we respond as a global community to a pandemic. They're learning that. That's the biggest lesson that they're learning. They're watching us. They're watching to see who's helping in communities, who's going out, who's being there for someone, who's making calls. They're seeing what our governments do.
Yeah.
They're watching. So I would tell a parent not to overthink it, but just to literally find joy, which is something on the inside. There's no outside solution. There's no 10 steps to joy or here's the 20 ways to, no. You know what you like to have fun doing.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to even, you know, having intentional time with your children to build those relationships. Because remember, parents, you know, you've probably been in a situation where you've been, you know, from work, when you come home from work, you're tired, you briefly ask, you know, how your child is doing, and then you go about your way. And now everyone's at home, everyone has, you know, and they're in close quarters. So now it's really time to be intentional with that, to better know who's in your house, to learn children. because they are emulating what they see. And I like the music that they listen to,
Mhm.
what they watch on YouTube, all of that. These music stars, they decided not to have their music videos on, VH1 and MTV and BT, because some of the imagery that they tried to do was in violation with the FCC. They could not broadcast some of the stuff that they now have on YouTube. So them, posting guns and measuring drugs and all of that, these are in the music videos now that your kids are listening to. This is the imagery that they see, and they want to emulate it. And they want to emulate it because there's no positive resource to be like, hey, that's not how you do it. So they don't know the difference between what's right and wrong because there's no one educating them. So
Yeah.
please educate your children at home. Forget this e-learning situation. If you just have to take a break and say, you know what, this is too much, then spend some time with your children and tell them the difference between right and wrong. Teach them about manners. Teach them about social skills, because we
Yes.
have to get to the foundation. We cannot continue to put all of these places together and think everyone's going to be functioning. But to the point, what about the people that don't have homes?
Let's talk about it. The reason I want all of these families to just exhale and to be, get to that point of joy and gratefulness is because we do have children who are homeless, children who are going from facilities, and children who are, uh, maybe in a home, but a home that is now over, like way more people than we would want in that typical situation. So maybe a home where it's 2 or 3 families into one home because of the circumstance. So a big thing for me, when it comes to low income families or people who are in need, is I one recognize my own need. I do, because poverty, or being poor is not always about something currency. We can be poor in spirit. We can be poor in, in many other ways. So I recognize my own need, and then I try to recognize the needs of those in my nuclear family. Some people didn't know who their family were until now, because right now it's whoever you're locked in with during a pandemic. So even that is a way for people to awaken and say, wow, this is my nuclear family. I'm grateful for you, and I'm going to do what I can to connect with you. So I think, yeah, just for those children who have no homes, there's a lot of efforts. I would encourage you, if you can get involved with any foster programs right now, if you have it in your, and this is for those of us who, who you are. You've got the arts and crafts, you've got the board games, you're ready. Talk to the people in your area and see if there is a foster care group or foster parents. Right now in this circumstance, children are being removed. They're being removed from their homes.
Yeah.
Some children, the home that they would have had is now, it's being brought to attention that that home is not adequate. For those families who cannot find a way to cope, for those families who are not creating a safe place, please consider going and getting a child. Even if you're thinking, but even during the pandemic, how could I do it? If you couldn't do it, see what you can do. Go and support those who are taking in children. Find out if your shelter needs a board game. The shelter in your neighborhood, where women and children who are homeless are going, do they need a board game? It doesn't sound like a lot, but you might have extra books you can mail over to them. It can make a big difference. This is what the children are learning from what we do right now, how we respond.
And you see the child in Georgia Tech by the name of Bryce, and I'm going to still speak his name because he was a young king that committed suicide right before he accepted his scholarship at Georgia Tech. And he did not want to leave his mom behind. He did not want to, take that next step due to the fact he didn't want to leave people behind, and he felt guilty. And there's a lot of children right now today that feel guilty that they're unable to do their work and their parents are unable to help them, and their parents are frustrated with the fact that it's not working, and there's trauma that's being impacted in several communities and several homes right now today with this e-learning situation.
I
So
bring out the big guns. I like, I'm a non-schooler, I'm a technologist. I love virtual platforms. I love it. But here are some big guns I'm going to bring out. Okay. And I want parents to hear me. They are legally your children. It is an honor. It is a privilege to work with and for your families. At any moment, you may contact your teacher, your school, your district, whomever, and say, I'm done. Mm-hmm. At any moment, for any reason. And I would say this not during a pandemic, but I say this all the time. I'm a non-schooler. So I inform parents all the time, like, you can call them and say, we got this, thank you. School is compulsory, meaning it is the law that you go to school, but you have choices. You have options of what your attendance includes. Parents, they're your children. You're responsible. You have the rights and you have the responsibility. And for those of us who are privileged as educators to act in lieu of parents, to act in guardianship, even we need to take a step back and focus on the health of the children.
Yeah.
Focus on the health.
Well, I just thank you so much for spending time and having this very enlightening conversation. And I hope that we can get to the root. This conversation sounds very familiar to a program that I have on every other Tuesdays with Kimberlyn Jackson, and it's called The Whole Child. And it basically kind of talks about getting to the root of the child and removing those systemic barriers and the trauma and working through that. And sometimes it takes breathing. Sometimes it takes being intentional and really, wanting to do the work, because you need to do the work in order to break free from that. And so I just really appreciate you for taking time to come out and talk to us, Dr. BT. So can you tell people, what you do, how people could find you, if they want to follow up with you or, use you for any one of your services that you have?
Well, the best way to reach out to me is at Aspire Star on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, ASPIRESTAR. You can also email me at drbt@aspireil.org. I'm doing something which I think is a good way to connect with us. We have a big celebration. I've been in this for about 10 years now. Tomorrow's our 10th anniversary for our nonprofit. I know, right? It started just me, my mom, and my grandma. So I'm really grateful. But for our birthday, we're gonna allow people to come into our private social network. It's nothing huge, but it's for the types of things that we talk about. It's all about making learning enjoyable. So I'm going to encourage, you'll see on my media, I'll be putting out links for people to join up. And for a period of time, we're just going to allow families to come in. We see the need, we've been asked, so, we're going to be responsive. I'm really grateful for this conversation. I know we're going to talk more.
Absolutely. I'm going to definitely have you more.
Yeah, holistic teaching. Oh, that's the future. That's the future.
Yeah. And so I thank you so much for coming on, and I will definitely share your links in the video links so that way people can easily find you. And again, this is a great conversation, and you are invited to Teaching for the Culture anytime, Dr.
Thank you.
So with that being said, thank you for tuning in to Teaching for the Culture. And this is your host, Bianca Goolsby, with my special guest, Dr. BT. And until next time, everyone, have a great day.